you're here to impress the company representatives and the company. You're not here to impress the other candidates that you came with. This isn't the space to now be thinking, oh, I don't want the candidates to think that I'm a beg, or do you know what I mean? Or to have this impression of me. That should be the last thing on your mind. Hi guys, and welcome to Apprenticeish, where we talk all about apprentices, apprenticeships, kind of.
My name's Zalika.
And my name's Josephine.
And we are your hosts of the Apprenticeish podcast.
Welcome back. So today we are talking about interviews, assessment centres, basically the next stage of getting an apprenticeship after you've done the application form. So we split it up into sort of two stages, and I'm going to talk about the first stage, which is before the actual D-Day preparation. So before you get to the assessment centre or to the company to have your interview. Right. So I would say jog your memory about what you've told them about yourself, i.e. reread your CV and your cover letter. That is why you were essentially chosen. Also, congratulations for getting to the second stage, but that is why you were chosen to attend an interview or attend an assessment centre. It's something in your application form, it's something in your CV. And so reread that so that you know what to build on. Obviously, throughout the whole of this process, you've been researching the company's values and their future strategies and trying to gauge like what type of direction that they're trying to go in. So you, again, should assess like to what extent are you aligned with it? What can you say to impress at the interview? If your company is planning on getting into AI or environmental work, there's scope there for you to impress and show how you could be a good, team member and asset. And then I guess the key skill is critical thinking. I feel like that's the key to success in assessment centres and also in interviews. So critical thinking, I'm just going to go with the definition, is the ability to analyse information objectively and make sound, reasoned judgments. And I feel like they're going to be testing that throughout every aspect and every stage of that day. So I think it's very important to think about how well you are a critical thinker, think about how you can demonstrate it, and make sure that you're always evaluating things, you're explaining things, and you're showing that you have sound knowledge with whatever sort of question that they ask you or activity they put you and your group of people through. And then lastly, I will say you should make sure that you come correct, i.e. dressed well, on time or early. And with all of your documents, you don't want at the end, if they're asking for, ID or like your A-level results or your GCSE certificates, you don't want to have to be the one. There's always somebody that says, oh, I didn't bring it, or can I email it to you later? But just showing proactiveness and bringing all of the documents that you think are relevant in a folder, along with like a notepad and a pen, it shows them good attitude and it shows them proactiveness. So yeah, that's before the event prep.
Okay, so the next part is what happens when you actually get to the assessment centre. Now, the assessment centre might be a little bit overwhelming, especially because it tends to just literally... The assessment centre is the company's building. It doesn't tend to be like a different location. It will usually be where you're going to end up working. Some people don't know the difference between what is an assessment centre? It's literally just the company's building. But it's called an assessment centre because they're assessing the next stage of your application. So the purpose of it, it's the same as making an application. It's more of like a funneling process so they can, reduce the amount of candidates that they have to pick from at the end. It's supposed to, for the most part, it's a problem-based situation. Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say something. So it's problem-based situation. So they could do a range of things. They could give you a test to do in the assessment center. It could be written, it could be numerical, it could be a group task, it could be a range of different things. They can give you a scenario and you and your team have to propose a solution. So there is a delicate balance between assertiveness, especially in a group situation. You don't want to fade into the background, and collaboration, because it's not about you taking over everything.
So true. Yeah. You have to balance them both. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think also it's there to see what kind of team worker you are, because for the most part, you don't work in isolation. So, that's really important.
Along with critical thinking, there is also the skill of problem solving. And these are sort of highly valued skills that they are on the lookout for during the interview, during the role play or the presentation that you have to do at the assessment center. And so we just decided to break down the problem solving process for you. And to give you sort of a good background so that you have a structure when you're faced with a problem that you don't have an immediate solution to. So when you are given a scenario or whatever it may be at the assessment center, you have to identify the problem, which is usually quite easy. And then you have to gather the relevant information, which means asking really good reasoned questions and showing those critical thinking skills. And so that's where you get to show how thorough you are, how comprehensive you are, how on it you are, how alert you are. And then the next stage would be sort of generating potential solutions. So this is the chance to show your creative side and to show how creative you can be in generating resolutions to the problems. And everybody will have different answers because you're all different and you all come from different walks of life. And have different experiences that will feed into that process. So also the company representatives are taking stock of how creative you are, but also getting to know you a bit more. And then evaluating the options. So again, like back to, your evaluative side and how good business minded you are, choosing the correct option, backing it up and having reasons for why the other options are weaker. That shows your analysis. And then reviewing the whole process and, being at peace with it and checking in with everybody, that shows collaboration and it shows leadership. So we thought we'd break down the problem solving sort of hack that we found in our experience of assessment centres and interviews. Should we move on to strategies for success?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to start?
So this is talking about like some kind of tips that you guys can take away in order to be a phenomenal candidate at assessment centres. So the first thing is to practice with sample questions. So it can be a bit challenging, especially if you've never been to an assessment centre, to try and like understand what they could be asking you. But you can literally honestly just use like an AI software and ask them to generate a scenario that could be asked in the interviewing process for that particular industry. I mean, I don't know if it's advanced enough to, if you include the company name, it could produce something that's a bit more relevant. I don't know. But yeah, if you've never ever interacted with a problem question, don't practice in the interview. It's just not a good place to start.
True.
Especially because you'll be going up against candidates where I'm almost certain there's at least someone who, has done this before, or this is not their first apprenticeship application. So you kind of just want to feel a bit more confident in that process. Do you want to talk about the next point?
Yeah, sure. So the next point is just like your overall sort of aura in terms of having a good attitude, in terms of how you fare with networking and how active of a listener you are. Some people pay attention more to body language than to what's actually coming out of your mouth. And I've noticed that in group settings, being the one that, nods my head in the right places and offers the speaker a bit of reassurance about what they're saying and that it makes sense and that it's of value, it becomes something where, not that they rely on you, but this has happened a lot to me, like not only in assessment centres but in retail, where my body language has established this sort of connection where now she or he will be talking to the group, but will always like make their way back to me. I don't know if it's a comfort thing, maybe they're nervous about speaking, but it's just body language is powerful, what you're saying is powerful, how you move is powerful, so yeah, that's my point.
I would also say make sure, I really like the active listening point. So, of course, you have to understand and be aware of the industry that you're in and the profession that you're about to enter. And I think active listening requires you obviously to pay attention, but to ask questions in a relevant and like pertinent way. You're not just saying words, especially because these group tasks tend to be timed. They don't just give you like the whole day to do. You might have like 30 minutes for one task and it's 15 minutes to present. So even if the assessor is like not right next to your face, just generally within the group, you want to make sure that you're asking questions that can help solve the problem in a way that's obviously like relevant to your industry and profession.
Yeah, 100%. I think the last point that we'll leave you with for success is you're here to impress the company representatives and the company. You're not here to impress the other candidates that you came with. And that is not me trying to sort of make you isolate yourself from them. But I realize that, for introverts and for people that may be shy, or people that don't want to be the first person to put their hand up and answer the question, this isn't the space to now be thinking, I don't want the candidates to think that I'm a beg, or do you know what I mean, or to have this impression of me. That should be the last thing on your mind. You should be very you focused, because the successful candidate from this process will be the person that was focused on themselves. So that's the last tip that we will leave you with on that. And then we're going to move on to the Q&A section. And this is where we either source a question about the topic of conversation, or one of you email us on apprenticeish@gmail.com, or DM us, get in touch with us on our social media and ask us questions that we like to answer at the end of every episode. So I'll go ahead and read this one. I consider myself an introvert, and my main concern is the group tasks we have to do in assessment centres. There is always that candidate that is domineering and vocal, and the role tends to go to that person. How can I manage this and find a way to stand out to the company? That's a good one.
Do you want to answer?
You go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the first thing I'd say is being self-aware is really important. So if you're in an environment where you immediately know that there's someone who's like trying to control everything, it's good to identify weak points in how your team work together, or areas that you can improve on, because what you can do is immediately after that tends to be the one-on-one interviews or panel interview. So you can mention in that, because sometimes assessors get concerned about people who don't really engage, or they appear to be very reserved. And even if you have loads of good ideas, nobody will know that unless you communicate it. So if you're not going to communicate that in a group setting, then take that and in the interview, you can even wait until the end and say, by the way, I think in the group situation, I feel like it could have gone a bit better if we did this, this, and this. Like, you don't have to wait for them to ask you what your thoughts were on how that went. Just like, don't put yourself at a disadvantage, because what you'll then do is make clear to them, you'll be making it clear to them that you have been able to identify issues and that you have solutions to them. So what could you have done better next time, or how do you feel like the group solution was? How do you feel like it could have been improved? That kind of thing. But as for the controlling person, there's always someone who tries to take over or be too controlling. And I think it's good to speak up and really try to build your confidence before that. But equally, I don't think you should be inauthentic, but at the end of the day, it is an interview. Like, they can't know, nobody will know how good you are unless you tell them. So I'm encouraging you to be vocal, even if it's, asking questions and engaging other members of the team, because that will then put you in, like, I don't want to say put you in the center, but you're kind of like holding all the, gathering all the different ideas together so that the team can work more cohesively.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have much to add because I think my response is pretty much the same. But, you know, as an introvert, you're going to have to step into a different sort of role when you're being put in that situation for the next 20, 30 minutes. And I think I have been in situations where there is somebody who's domineering and vocal and controlling everything. And there's different ways that you can handle it. You could be an advocate in the sense of you're advocating for everybody else, not just for you, but for all the other people that this person is, you know, not including or bossing about. You can ask sort of questions like, okay, so should we discuss roles? Should we allocate a responsibility to each person? So what would you like to do so that we can decide what everyone else wants to do? Things like that, where you're sort of spreading it around, like the representatives and the people assessing you, they are paying attention to how you would handle this situation, because those types of dominating people exist in a business anyway. They exist, you know, in a meeting room and on the board, like they are there. And how do you handle them? And how do you still, you know, reach your objectives while still handling a difficult personality? You can also be a facilitator, as Alika mentioned, where you are collating and getting everybody's points of views and being that central person. You've now made yourself sort of a very valuable member of the team, because you've collated everything and you're making sure that everything gets included into the product or the end result. So yeah, there are many, many different ways for you to handle. It's about your personality and questions that you're comfortable asking, but there's many different ways to handle somebody like that and still showcase your skill set to the company representatives. So I hope that helps. But yeah, we're going to move on to the golden nugget now. Which is where we give a quote, a recommendation of a book or a movie, just anything short and snappy to leave you with that we hope will serve you on your apprenticeship journey. So would you like to go first, Alika?
My golden nugget, I literally just had it. I should have typed it out while you were talking. It's gone now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I think you should go, yeah.
Okay. So my golden nugget is... basically relax. Relax as much as you can. I think if you are stressed, it will show. If you are highly distractible, it will show. If you are anxious, it will show. A little bit of it is like cute and endearing and she or he is intimidated by the process, but they'll come into their own. But a lot of it is, it can detract from your selling points and what you're trying to present. So relax.
My golden nugget is that the assessment center begins as soon as you step on their property. Don't be rude to the receptionist. If you interact with other members of staff, like even if you think the assessor's not looking or watching you, I have heard a few horror stories of people being like really mean to other members of staff, and then when they get into the interview, they're like a different person. So just be nice, be a normal person.
Be yourself. Be yourself. Okay, well, that's the end of this episode. We really hope that it was helpful and useful to you. And if you have any questions or queries about anything we've said, you know how to contact us or leave a comment down below. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.